Check, check, 1, 2. Now that's the webcam. All right. Let me check again. Check, check. Weird. You've seen that, right?
It's not giving you.
It is now.
Oh, it is.
But it wasn't before.
Yeah.
That's weird. So sorry, guys.
Okay.
If you couldn't hear us through YouTube, let me reframe what I was saying. If you didn't hear me, I apologize for that. For some reason, it didn't have it on, but it was turned on.
Yeah. Let's see if the chat.
Let me check Facebook. Okay, now I hear you. All right, great. Yay. Thank you, Christina, for saving my podcast.
There you go.
That's Christina. She's actually one of our amazing social media people. So if you leave a message on Facebook or you leave a message on YouTube or TikTok, she's usually the one that's answering back. So she's obviously better than me at this stuff. So thank God she's here.
Yeah, she's a good listener.
Okay, you can hear us on both. Yay!
All right.
Thank you. All right, so back
recap.
Again. Yes, recap. This morning, me and Bob woke up. We saw this amazing story, something that we had been talking about for a long time on our podcast. The U.S. Surgeon General finally decided to address the pandemic of loneliness and mental health in America.
Yeah.
So that's what I said before the microphone was turned on. He's laid out a framework. He has laid out a framework for a national strategy to advance social connection. All right. So this framework we're going to go over here in just a minute. But one of the things that I thought was interesting that he talked about was in recent years, about 1 in 2 adults in America report experiencing loneliness. And that was actually done before COVID-19.
Yeah.
So I would imagine a lot
Absolutely.
more. The pandemic, of course, cut us off from plenty of friends and family. So that isolation and loneliness was probably really amplified for many people. I know it was for lots of people that I know.
And the masks created disconnect because you couldn't see people's faces.
Yep. Yeah, it's hard to talk to someone when you can't read their facial expressions in person. So there was definitely, even if you're in person, there was still that layer of disconnection.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that didn't help. But finally, like I said, the government kind of realized this, and the Surgeon General's laid out a plan. The reason why they want to kind of deal with it so much is because research shows, and we've talked about this on lots of our other podcasts, that loneliness and isolation are linked to sleep problems. It's linked to inflammation and immune changes and responses in younger adults. So there's a lot of younger adults that I know that are starting to actually develop autoimmune disorders younger in life. Yeah. I've actually talked to some people who have developed these things over the last couple of years. And some people don't really realize why or what's going on. This could be part of it, obviously. In older people, isolation can lead to symptoms such as pain, insomnia, depression, anxiety, and a shorter lifespan. So a lot of that's caused by the inflammation.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's been studies that show that social isolation is a bigger problem than either smoking, poor diet, lack of exercise, all the common things people think would lead to poor health. Loneliness is actually one that is the biggest issue. And they also have studies from parts of the world where the society is very, very well connected. Small town in Italy where everybody walks down to the marketplace
in the morning,
see all their friends, and people get together for dinner at night with their family, and you don't have this craziness where you're running from one thing to another and when you're home with your family, you're buried in your electronics, watching TV on the computer, on your phone, etc. And
it's kind of like being together but still disconnected.
Yeah.
And that's I think a lot of what the Surgeon General and in general society is seeing, right? As we get the technology that allows us to kind of focus more on ourselves and our knowledge building and our ability to control things from literally the palm of our hands, I don't think we perceive the need to kind of interact as much because, well, I can just Google it. Yeah. So being together but still disconnected, not good. And one of the things I agree with what kind of you said is it's a lot of it's cultural, right? A lot of cultures are different. Italian, my wife's Italian. She loves having family dinners and everything like that. That's something that they had a lot of. But other people I know in households that had 15 different children that were different ages, you would just see each other in passing as one was going to like soccer practice, and then somebody's coming home from football practice. Oh, did you grab something to eat? Yeah, we got McDonald's. Like that's, again, you're together but still disconnected.
Yep. Come home, kids do their homework, get on their computer, go to bed, have very little connection with their family.
And that can lead to more, yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, and people of all ages. So we were talking about older people, people who are older, some of the symptoms they experience, but in people of all ages, right? Isolation can be associated with higher risks of heart disease, stroke, diabetes, obviously addiction. We talked about that on another show. We talked about alcoholism on the rise in America. Is a show we did, a podcast. So if you haven't seen that, it's on our YouTube channel and it's at boomerboost.com. You can actually go check out stuff there. All of our other podcasts are there as well. So if you get a chance, you can check that out. But anyway, it can lead to addiction, suicidality, and self-harm, right? And dementia.
Yeah. And depression goes hand in hand with loneliness. Depression can mimic dementia. And part of what people can do to help themselves if they are lonely and they don't have enough social connection is to do the same things that work for helping with depression. Because if you're lonely and you get depressed, now you don't feel like getting up off the couch and going to do anything, and so you get more lonely.
Right. The lack of motivation kind of keeps you even more isolated because you're not having the oomph to get up and go out.
Yeah. So learning about depression from the podcast that we have on depression would be a really good first step for people.
I agree. Now, obviously, we're kind of talking about this. Dr. Murthy says that social connection can help, right? Serving as a buffer to health problems while making communities more resilient. So obviously, the opposite of isolation is connection. So social connection is one of the answers here, and that's what the plan, the national strategy to advance social connection is all about, right? But he had said something about loneliness that I think is really important. I think we've kind of talked about it, but something to keep in mind is like loneliness can be different or look different for many different people. It can also be different things, right? Some people will become more withdrawn. Others become more irritable and angry. When that happens and you become more isolated, the time to get concerned is when you start to experience the feeling of loneliness for a long period of time. It's one thing to like feel lonely. You pick up the phone, call a friend, maybe get in a car, go and see somebody, and then that's a short-term loneliness. You kind of remedy with it. But if that doesn't help, or you're really not motivated to go and do that, and you have a prolonged period of loneliness, that's when you might want to start being a little concerned about how to find more social connection. He had also said, and I like this, that loneliness acts like hunger or thirst, an actual signal our body sends when we need something to survive.
Yeah.
Right. That's pretty profound because you don't think about it that way.
Yeah.
Right. When we were cavemen and we were evolving, we had to survive by working together in groups. Because if not, very rarely would a loner survive, but very, very rarely would you make it on your own, And so that's kind of an instinct thing that we can't forget about. And we're kind of ignoring our instincts by being so isolated, I would say. Anyway.
Yeah, it goes all the way back to, being a young baby. Babies have to have connection and care from others to survive. There's not a baby that could survive on their own.
Actually, yeah, that's right.
They get their first connection when they're first born, and baby is given to the mom or dad to hold them,
Yep.
and
That
it
bond.
continues on from there. And when you see little children that are neglected, as they get older, they become very contracted.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a whole phenomena with little children where you notice that if they're sitting in the high chair,
Mm-hmm.
they can reach things on the table that you thought were out of their reach.
Right.
Because they have no restriction in their ability to reach out. But especially in certain societies where there's not as much acceptance of close physical connection,
Mm-hmm.
little children will reach, and they love to wrap their arms around a person's neck and just hold them like this.
Right.
But they get a little bit of pushback sometimes. Somebody's not comfortable, and it might be mom or dad,
Mm-hmm.
not comfortable with that much closeness because of their own life. So the baby energetically feels this little bit of pushback. So the next time they don't reach as far.
Mm-hmm.
They just reach to what they think is going to match.
Mm.
It's very other than conscious.
Yeah, we talk about the frequency or the range that your heart emits.
Yeah.
And so that, I think, would be kind of something that would happen when you
You're
feel
feeling
that.
it energetically.
Yeah.
And so in the worst case scenario, you see a child that's isolated, left in a crib in an orphanage in a third world country, and with almost no contact. They end up contracted with their hands across their chest, and they'll rock back and forth like this in extreme anxiety from no connection.
Wow.
And you can see pictures of that or videos of it on the internet, what actually happens.
Yeah, the result of severe isolation. Right. It turns into, are they doing this because they're trying to hold themselves?
They're contracting as far away as they can from a potential experience of rejection.
Wow. That's messed up.
But this is also a phenomena that occurs with people as they get older. So when you're a young child, you kind of grow up with this pushback, and you're not free to love and free to throw your arms around somebody and be comfortable with it. Then as you get older, you have this pushback. So people will beckon with their hand, here, come be my friend. But at the same time, they're going like this. Well, not too close, because I'm not comfortable with that. All right, so not too close, and so you end up in isolation.
Tug of war, kind of. Yeah. It's like a tug of war between.
You can end up in isolation. So and your cells literally become contracted. So
really,
there's therapy that people can go through, bioenergetic therapy, which I was fortunate to get trained in, which helps people to release that energy that's creating this contraction so that they can again in their life become more open,
farther
loving,
reaching,
reach out farther again. And there's literal physical exercises you can do to facilitate that.
That's cool.
But then, of course, part of it is identify psychological issues that are attendant that you need to try to resolve as well.
It's funny that you said that, because the national strategy also addresses the mental health aspect that comes from the isolation, right? So that's actually what I was getting to is the strategy, right? So what is it? It's actually, in this article, it says it's rooted in 6 pillars. The framework for our national strategy to combat loneliness and mental health related to it has 6 pillars. So the first one sounds pretty obvious, right? Strengthening social infrastructure in communities, involving booster programs like volunteer organizations, religious groups, policies like public transit or education, and physical elements like libraries and green spaces. Okay. So you're looking at making your actual surroundings more, I guess, easier to connect in and through, using these places as ways to socially connect. And obviously, one of the things that like through church, every now and then they ask you to be a volunteer to go for the Easter egg hunt, right? And so you probably have a little trepidation, oh, Easter egg hunt, right? But then that idea of being able to go out and interact and then see the joy that is coming and then be a part of it, I think that's what they're talking about, right? Strengthening things like that.
Yeah, and the just the issue with transportation, make it easy for people to get to places, easy to get to your church, easy to get to the park, to the library, and all like that. So that alone won't do it, of course, but that's why they have 5 other pillars.
5 other pillars, right? Now the second one calls for more pro-connection public policies. So they're talking more in the political realm, making some policies that urged to adopt an approach that recognizes that these policies that they create can either benefit or hinder the social connection aspect that we are trying to strengthen. So being more conscious of the policies that politicians and governments make, at least looking at how it will affect the connection between humans and that interaction. So that's, I don't know if that's something they thought about a lot before.
Well, I think the COVID probably brought about some of that awareness. They know that some of the policies that were passed down state by state, and they can tell by studying one state versus another. They know what happened to children during COVID that were forced to either stay home or wear masks when they were in school, what it did to, create an obstacle to social connection. And so I think it might be a kind of a veiled reference to wondering whether or not masks is really going to be something we want to do in the future.
Gotcha.
Because they now know that it doesn't do a whole lot to stop the spread of certain pathogens. Certain ones it does, but certain ones it doesn't. And so be more selective and careful not to isolate people
with these policies,
blanket policies that have not really been researched properly.
That's good. Sometimes you do things out of necessity. And then later on, I guess it gives you good data on what not to do.
Yeah.
And so now you have years of data to look at and see what happened.
And what's really good is that the Surgeon General is identifying this issue as something really important to begin to think about. Prior to COVID, no one ever was talking about it.
Nobody was ever, not ever, but you barely talk about mental health before.
Right.
One of the things unfortunately COVID brought around, was mental health issues, but also a good thing was the spotlight that it put on it, because we had so much time to sit and kind of look at ourselves in the mirror and say, holy crap, we need help. Like we're not good, even without COVID, we weren't good. So let's try to make changes. So that's a very encouraging thing from the Surgeon General. We were on the third pillar. The third pillar is the relying on the crucial role of public health and healthcare delivery systems to address social connection. Increased investment in educating healthcare providers about the physical and mental benefits of social connection and the risks of not being connected or disconnecting. Patients should be assessed and supported. Organizations should track the prevalence of disconnection in their communities and try to advance local solutions, right? So it's call to action pretty much, right?
Yes, and typically your healthcare providers are not paying any attention to this. You come to the doctor, you get your blood drawn, they check your blood pressure, they write you a prescription, and they never once even think to ask you about your social connection. Yet the studies show that it's the most important aspect to our health, and it can trump everything else. So somebody can be a smoker, a drinker, never exercise, but if they have really good social connections, it doesn't seem to matter. They still live to be in their 80s and 90s.
That's super interesting.
Yeah. And so, but now there are new types of medical practices, mostly concierge practices, that have many different types of people working with the medical doctor, including social workers, that whose job it is to help make sure that the patient it has the right information, the right opportunity, the right support and help to make sure that they're not socially isolated.
That's
So
nice.
the social worker will bring the patient to the church for the first time and introduce them to the pastor and the people that are at the church. Okay. Show them how to use the public transportation, counsel them in techniques like how to learn to start a conversation with somebody, how to be a really good friend, how to listen, those types of things. Now in certain practices, medical practices, are part of the treatment plan.
There you go. Yeah. Right. You got to teach, right? Yeah. And then hopefully those things can be used to further the connections. So yeah, again, that was the third pillar, the crucial role of public health. The fourth one here is something that we were kind of talking about real quick before we went on, was reforming the digital environments. Obviously, I'm in digital environment here, digital environment there. Camera,
monitor,
camera. But no,
cell phones in our pocket.
We kind of started out talking about how social media technology can isolate, but there is an ability for it to be a connecting force, right? And so what they're talking about here, and what Murthy was singling out, is the tangible impact of technology on Americans' daily lives. Like we were saying, it's always in your hand. Technology can distract us and occupy our mental bandwidth. It can make us feel worse about ourselves and some of the relationships we have, and it can diminish our ability to connect with others. Some technology fans the flames of marginalization, discrimination, bullying, and other forms of severe social negativity. We obviously can see that. You hear a lot of stories on the news about TikTok challenges, all these things that aren't necessarily the most positive thing. But what he says is, if we can have more transparency from tech firms, as well as kind of establish an implementation for safety standards, a little bit of age-related protections, right? What's wrong with age-related protections? And technology, like I was saying, can also develop pro-connection technology, right? To promote healthy social connection through digital platforms by creating safe environments and safeguard the well-being of their users and their information and their privacy, right? So there's ways to do it. We're in the early infancy of trying to do it with the social, the policy that we're talking about here, but there's positives and pros and cons to everything. So,
Yep. I think that a big part of what a lot of people recommend in regard to the digital is, first off, doing less of it. Because if you're at home and you get locked into a perpetual watching of videos on whatever platform it is,
a rabbit hole, if you will.
Yeah, then you're not going to get up off the couch and get on the bus and go down to the church. So you have to have an awareness of how you feel, what it is that you really desire, and what is actually going on right now that you have to change. And so one of the techniques that we talked about the last time was having a piece of paper with 3 columns.
Right.
And so we can take this paper here and we can make 3 columns. And in the middle, we can write down what it is that we want to work on, which is, so we'll put it in a positive sense, social connection. Right? So this is our goal. We want to have more social connection. I'm a person who feels lonely. It's been a while. I want more social connection. So then on the other side, you write why. Right? Why do I want more social connection? Some people may not really know all the reasons, but they just know that they have a readiness to believe that they'll feel better and they'll feel more valued if they have social connection. So you write those things down. Value. Right? Feel better. Now, other things that people could put is better health.
Right.
Better health. Longer health span.
Yeah, longer lifespan. Right.
Longer health
and life.
and lifespan.
There you go.
So, and you can add to this as
Right.
you go, as more things
To running
come up.
a running
Okay.
list.
And then on the other hand, you put the word feelings. And this is what we refer to as a future pacing. So you're going to look out into the future and you're going to say, okay, so as I take action for my new social connection, for these reasons why, and as I begin to have more friends, more connection, how am I going to feel?
How am I going to feel?
How am I going to feel?
I'm going to feel happy,
Happy,
right? I know that.
connected.
I was just going to say connected, right? I feel like part of a group.
Yep, maybe loved.
Loved. Well, I see hearts over there, so
Group.
love for sure.
Yeah.
See, this
And
is
so
there you go.
now these are the feelings that you're going to have. Now, the key is, in order to help you take action, is you want to feel these feelings as if it's already happened.
Right.
So the easiest way to do it is with gratitude.
Gratitude's a
And
wonderful
so you
thing.
can just sit quietly and look at your paper and say, I am so grateful now that I am feeling happy. I'm feeling so happy because of the new friends I've made and this new social connection that I've been working on. I'm so grateful that I feel connected now. And I'm so grateful that I'm feeling loved by the people in my group. And as you linger in gratitude for these different things you've listed, this creates, Raleigh, it totally changes the electromagnetic pulse that's coming off your heart muscle.
Right. I
Okay.
referred to that just a minute ago.
Right. And now what happens is you become this person who's feeling grateful, who's feeling connected, who's feeling loved. And now people want to be around you,
Mhm.
and you won't feel isolated. And so they say the more that you focus on being grateful for these feelings, the more you draw your new life to you.
Mm.
And so this is a very powerful strategy. And then but you can come back to the middle and you can put the word tasks.
Mm.
What are you actually going to do
Right.
to facilitate this?
Right. Now people will say, why do you have the feelings and go through the gratitude before you do anything? That's because you're setting your mind up. Your subconscious doesn't know that you didn't already do it, right?
Right.
And so
you're setting yourself up to attract what it is you need to accomplish this goal.
exactly. I just wanted to talk about that.
So
'Cause
you're
that's
setting yourself
important.
up to attract it. So what are the tasks? Okay. Now, if you already are feeling good, you're more likely to execute your tasks.
So Christina says we can't see what's being drawn. So it makes us not look at the camera. So let's show the camera. Can you guys see this today? There you go. Too much light. There you go. All right. So you've got social connections in the middle, right?
And tasks.
And tasks, what you're going to do to make social connections.
You got why?
We're going to do why over here, why we're going to do it, to feel valued, feel better health, longer life, longer health span. Feelings are happy, connected, loved,
group,
having a group. All right. So that's what we're drawing.
Yep.
And
thanks, Christina.
We appreciate that. Thank you for the input.
And so now the thing is the tasks. Okay. So a simple task is because most people belong to some type of a religious group in this country, in the United States. So you're going to go to church or whatever the gathering place is for your religion, right? So you have to make this commitment. I'm going to go to church, and I'm going to the Wednesday evening mass that's being held at my church, which has a social group connected to it. Okay.
Cool.
So that's my task. Go on Wednesday. Okay. Now, what time? Starts at 7 p.m.
7 p.m. There you go.
So now what do I have to do? I got to be ready. I got to be dressed and ready at 6:30 because I'm going downstairs and I'm getting on the bus and I'm going to the church, or I'm being picked up by a person from the church. So maybe if you haven't been in a while and there is no bus to your church, you have to call the church and
Right.
say, I want to come. Is there somebody that lives nearby me that would give me a ride?
Right.
You have to take action, right? And
Take action.
so call, right? You write these things down. And then once you've written them down, you number them. So the first thing you got to do is call, right?
Yeah.
So
Pretty
you call.
much set yourself up
Right.
a plan
Then
step by step.
what's number 2? What clothes are you going to wear?
Right.
What outfit are you going to wear? Okay. So, and then number 3 is I'm going to be eating dinner at 5:30 because by the time I eat and clean up the dishes, my ride's going to be here.
There you go.
So you might have to eat earlier than you normally do. So you got to make a plan. And a lot of times, if people have been isolated and lonely, they don't have plans like this.
Right.
They just drift through the day with no structure.
Right.
But if you're going to church at 7:00, there has to be a little bit of structure that makes sure you get there.
Right. And then
And now you've got something to focus your mind on.
right.
And guess what? Now you're not feeling lonely because you're focusing your mind on something that's going to create social connection. You're already feeling better.
Right. It's actually like when you're getting ready to go out to dinner or when you go into a party, you get that feeling of excitement, kind of anticipation, a positive anticipation, because you know you're going to be able to see some people maybe you haven't seen in a while. You're going to have a good time, and so those are those feelings that are being triggered, and that's what we were talking about. Good technique. One of the things too that we were talking about with the pillars is the 5th one is called deepening knowledge, right? So deepening knowledge. And what it says here is urges stakeholders such as officials, policymakers, healthcare providers, and researchers to collaborate on an agenda to address the gaps in this data based on loneliness, right? So by measuring these things, we can try to see what kind of progress we're making, essentially. So obviously, we talk about this at work all the time. If we can't measure, the data, you don't know if you're doing the right thing. So that's what they're talking about here with deepening knowledge, understanding the driving forces of connection and disconnection, and how we can be more effective and efficient in addressing these states. There's a lot of words there.
Yeah.
But I just basically think they're saying, take a deeper look at it, use this data that we have to figure out where we're missing stuff.
Yeah.
Right.
Set up a system to guide you along the way.
Mm-hmm. And then the final one, which is pretty common sense, is urging a culture of connection in which Americans cultivate values of kindness, respect, service, and commitment to others, right? Everybody can use their voice to emphasize these values and model healthy connections. And the nation's institutions should help invest in demonstrating them, right? So basically, trying to remind ourselves of the values of respecting one another. A lot of the isolation kind of has you focused on yourself, right? And maybe inadvertently you disrespect someone because you've got blinders on, maybe you haven't interacted, so you haven't been practicing values, right? So it's kind of a focus and a shift on these things, which I think are important in any culture or society, like we were talking about earlier.
Well, the issues of kindness and respect, I think, the Surgeon General is talking about it from the point of view of institutions helping to foster this. And it's interesting because kindness and respect in an individual person and their commitment towards kindness and respect towards others goes a long way in helping avoid isolation. Because the people that are kind and respectful tend to have more friends, right? And so you can foster this. You can purposefully become more kind,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And you can do the same exact thing with this 3-column piece of paper with the issue of kindness. But even before you get to that, people have to be able to overcome their fear.
Okay. Right.
Because once people get isolated for a while, they start to become afraid of a few different things. One is they're afraid that the reason they're isolated and lonely is that there's something wrong with them,
Right.
that they're unlikable,
Mm-hmm.
right? And in addition to that, they're afraid to even leave the house at all. They become homebound because they're afraid to go out, because they're afraid people are looking at them. They become paranoid.
Mm-hmm.
And so in order to overcome these fears, you have to have a technique, because it's not just going to happen because you sit there and go, I'm not afraid anymore.
Right.
You still are. So people can use tapping for
Right.
this. Okay.
Yes.
So if you're sitting on your couch and you're lonely and depressed, and you know that it's time to make some decisions and make some moves to get out and about and get reconnected, you can use tapping to break this paralysis that you have. So you're sitting on your couch and you're like, oh, no, I'm not going out to the church. I haven't had a friend in so long. No one's going to like me. I don't have the right clothes to wear. My hair's not done properly. I don't like the glasses that I have, and I need new glasses.
Right.
Right.
Every excuse.
I'm going bald, whatever it is. So this is where you can use tapping to get over the fear, right? So whatever the fear is, let's take the issue of fear that people won't like you.
Right.
Okay, because that's a very common one. So if you tap on your fingertips like 5 times on each finger, and you repeat a phrase like this: even though up until now I thought I had to continue to be afraid that if I went out and socialized, people wouldn't like me, I completely love and accept myself anyway.
Right.
And I'm so grateful now that I realize I can transcend those fears. I can get dressed up, look great, put on my best face, my best personality, be authentic, and go out and feel like complete peace about the whole thing. Boom. Cross your hands over your heart,
Right.
breathe in and breathe out. You just created this pattern interrupt with affirmation that is now beginning to become the new you, that's confident and is creative.
Right.
And is assertive in making yourself move and change and to do something.
Right. Taking control.
Yeah. So now, if you can overcome the fear, now you've got your chance. You're going to church.
Right.
Okay. So what is it that is most likely that's going to help you as you go to a social situation and meet some new people?
Mm-hmm.
What is it that is going to help make a connection? What is it that's going to make the people at the church think that you are very kind and very smart and very easy to get along with, and somebody that they would want to be friends with long term, right?
Right.
So the one we know the most is listening.
Yes.
Right. Ask questions. Right. So don't start blurting out everything about yourself and your whole life and your crazy uncle that lives in the basement when you first meet the person.
No.
Right.
Stay away from that guy.
You want to listen to what the other person has to say. So ask them a question. What do you think about this? Right? Wasn't it a beautiful day today? What do you think about the great weather we've been having?
Right.
Right? What do you think about Pastor Dan? Wasn't that sermon just beautiful? What do you think about what he said?
Right.
And then listen. Right? And so as you listen, and this is where the concept of NVC comes in, nonviolent communication.
Right.
So as you listen, you're listening for feelings, right? And so as the person says, oh yeah, I really liked, when Pastor Dan was talking about this, right? And once they've answered, you can ask another question. How did that make you feel when he was speaking about that? Right? How did that make you feel? And then listen again. Oh, wow, it just gave me this feeling of love, like, the love of God. I could actually feel it. That's how I was feeling.
Right.
And you say, wow, that's really cool. Maybe we all need more of that,
Right. Okay.
right? Maybe we all need more of that.
Mhm.
Now, listen again. Oh, wouldn't that be wonderful if we had access to this every night,
Hmm.
right? Well, guess what? Maybe you do, but maybe Pastor Dan is teaching on YouTube Live on those other nights,
Right.
right? And so now it's like, oh, well, I could go home and watch YouTube. No, no. How would you like to get together on Friday nights and watch Pastor Dan's YouTube Live? That way, at least we could have Wednesday, Friday, and then come back on Sunday for Sunday church,
There you go.
right? So, and then here's the question: how would you feel about that?
Right. You got to keep asking the questions. It's
How would you
engaging,
feel?
right?
Right. And the studies show that people that ask the most questions are perceived to be the most likable, number one, and number two, the smartest.
So just ask a bunch of questions.
Right.
No, it's true though. Like one of the things that I mean, especially with the way kind of social media works, a lot of people make statements. You know, they will state how they feel. They will tell a story, but the idea of listening and asking someone else how they're feeling is almost kind of like a lost art.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's more about, well, this is how I'm feeling today, and this is da 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 da.
Right.
Not a lot of those say, I wonder how you're feeling today.
Yeah.
So
Raleigh, what do you think about this whole thing about these columns and nonviolent communication and the like? What do you feel about that?
well, honestly, I'm very familiar with it, and so I feel very happy to actually try to share this, because obviously, based on what we're reading, it's kind of an issue, right? And so to be able to actually share it makes me feel good. And then by feeling better about it, actually encourages me to do it more. So that's actually how I'm feeling about it.
Awesome.
How are you feeling, my friend?
That's a really interesting question. Why do you ask that?
Well, I ask that because I am interested in knowing that your social connection is strong. And if you need a social support group, I can invite you to mine.
And that's important to you. Why?
Because you're my brother and I work with you every day. So you have to have a good mental outlook, and I have to make sure that if I can help you with it, I can do that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Now, did you realize I never answered your question?
Yes, you did.
Okay.
Yes.
But the conversation
I did.
ended up on a nice note. Right?
It did.
But I never answered your question because if I was to answer your question, now I'm talking at you.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
But we had a perfectly good interaction with me never and not offending you by refusing to answer the question.
No. And actually, you've seen, maybe everybody, you've probably seen Whose Line Is It Anyway? Have you ever seen that show?
No.
Okay, there's a show called Whose Line Is It Anyway? It's improv comedy show. And one of the categories or one of the games they play is you have to only talk in questions. You cannot, whatever somebody says must be a question, and you must respond with a question. And whoever can make it the longest without having to, without answering, or
That's great.
And so that's like an extremely good it's like a game.
Yeah.
You could play with someone that would facilitate this communication and connection.
What's it called?
It's just
Whose line is it?
Well, the name of the show that they do, it's kind of like it's actually kind of like a social interaction game, and it's made to do improv. It's made to kind of be used to spur improv from comedians. And so it's just an exercise where you're always talking in questions, and the person who doesn't talk in questions loses.
Okay, so it's called Whose Line Is It?
Yeah, that Whose Line Is It Anyway is the name of the show. And I think they call the game just the question game, I think. But there's replays there. You'll find it on YouTube. Just like us, you'll find us on YouTube.
That's awesome.
At Boomers Forever Young.
I'm going to check that out.
Yeah, at Boomers Forever Young, you'll find actually a replay of this. And we've done about 6 or 7 lives now. And so if you haven't seen those, you'll see the replays there. And then if you actually check out boomerboost.com, we have all of our podcasts, about 75, 80 different podcasts that we did in our older format where we pre-recorded, and we went over a lot of topics. So there's a great bank of knowledge there. but we decided to go live so we could interact. And so as far as being able to interact, I've had a couple people here. I've got Julia that came in and said good morning to everybody. Of course, Christina is helping us out. And then I had our friend Josh. Josh stopped in and said hi and good morning. And so that's, we encourage you. We're talking about connection, right? We're talking about connecting and making community. So now we have an opportunity. We're also on TikTok over there. Unfortunately, not Rubber Band Man. I can't reach it, but hello everyone over there on TikTok. And so by us using this digital format, maybe we'll perform the way people can connect socially, and we welcome you to join that. So every Tuesdays, Thursdays, 11 a.m. is when we do this. We try to go over current topics, and if you guys have anything you want us to talk about, email us at boomerboost@boomerboost.com. If you have some questions about some products, we sell products. You can give us a call at 1-800-861-4609. We also have some really great people standing by that if you have kind of some questions, about what we talked about, because I'm pretty sure they're watching the replay or they're watching us live. They can help you with that kind of stuff too. Everybody that works with us here at the Boomer family has access to all the podcasts and have watched them all. So they can point you in the right direction. And my friend, I think the last thing I wanted to tell you is basically where you were going was how to start, right? Well, we kind of already talked about that, but in the article, what was said is that individual Americans might take time out of each day to connect with a friend or family member, minimize distractions during conversations, just like we were talking about, right? Focus, ask questions, be engaged with the now, right? Regularly practice service and gratitude, all right? So by being a person who practices gratitude, we talk about that a lot, especially in the show we did about inner balance, how gratitude affects the amygdala and the heart connection.
Yep.
It's actually a scientific thing. By practicing gratitude, you can actually, just by practicing it, you will encourage others to do the same, right? I don't know about you, but I have a mindfulness app on my iWatch, and it always reminds me a couple times a day to take a minute to be mindful, right? Be grateful. Practicing gratitude is what helps change that pulse from your heart into a positive one. And that's attracting people as well, right? Because when you walk into a room, the people in that room can feel that emission from your heart. Yeah. And if you're walking into a room positively, then subconsciously they feel it and go, hey, that looks like a cool guy. But you walk into the room and you're, I don't want to be here today. They're going to stand back, right? So that's the kind of thing. Cut back on the things that lead to disconnection, such as harmful social media use, like we said, time spent in unhealthy relationships. Now that's something not a lot of people talk about, especially when you're isolated. You might cling on to an unhealthy relationship because that's all you got, right?
Yeah.
And that further makes this issue with isolation and disconnection worse, right? So reassess your relationships. Use NVC to make them healthy if you can. Some you can't, but if you use nonviolent communication, it can really improve relationships, because a lot of times, let's be honest, relationships are just communicating, right?
Absolutely. And if we have the podcast on nonviolent communication.
Oh, yes.
That's also the name of the book that Marshall Rosenberg wrote.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's a very good book. And one of the things that we tend to do, right, is forget about the resources that we have because we get focused and distracted. So again, reach out. If you get distracted or you feel like you're isolated, reach out to a loved one, counselor. There's also, if you're really alone and there's nobody to turn to, there's hotlines. Crisis hotlines in times of struggle have saved a lot of people's lives. So don't be afraid to use those resources. But anyway, that's all I had to say. Just wanted to go over the wrap up on the article.
Very good. Thanks, Raleigh. Excellent.
But yeah, so we went over everything we had. Is there anything else that you had a couple little pointers on, or did we cover all that, my friend?
No, I would just say to use this technique with the 3 columns and put whatever it is in the middle that you want more of.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So if what you want is more kindness, and more respect, do a sheet on each one of those things
Okay.
and put kindness in the middle and assume kindness goes both ways. So you can put an arrow in one direction, arrow in another direction. It's coming to you and it's going out. So the more kindness that comes your way, the more kind you feel, the more kindness you give out, and it's a circle of energy.
There you go.
And so and then write down why. Why do I want to be more kind? Why do I want to be treated with more kindness? And how am I going to feel as I accomplish this goal of more kindness?
There you go.
Then you do the same thing with respect, right? So a lot of times you may have an idea, well, I want to be treated with more respect. Well, what does that mean? What exactly would have to happen in order for you to feel more respected? A lot of it is, well, someone will listen to me. Okay. So you better put down listening skills, because if you want more people to listen to you, you better learn how to listen better yourself. Right? Like begets like. And so you can do an exercise with each of the things that are most important to you. So what is it for your life? What's most important for you in your life in regard to this area of social connection?
Cool. Good. What I'll do is, anybody who's watching, I will put up some images of the 3 columns and how to lay it out. And I will make a resource where you can actually, if you wanted to, you could print it out.
Yeah.
So I'll add that. I'll link in the description of this video, and you can click on that. And I'll actually put it up on boomerboost.com in the self-help section.
Yeah.
I can actually create that and make a printable file.
Yeah.
And then you can get a hold of that and use it to make your action plan, your tasks, right? What are you going to do to improve your kindness or receive more kindness, right?
Yep.
Ask questions is one.
Yep.
And now I ask a question to you, Bob. Did you have a nice time on the show today?
You know, it's an interesting question, Raleigh. Why do you ask that?
Because I wanted to know, how are you feeling?
Oh, thank you. And feelings are important to you. Why?
Well, I was wondering the same thing. Feelings are important to you. Why? Anyway, okay, a little improv at the end, guys. Listen, that's it for today. So let's thank the Surgeon General for taking recognition of this problem of isolation and mental health, something that I was very refreshed to hear about when it came up, because mental health is definitely something that we want to focus on as a nation, because if we're not right up here, we won't be right anywhere else. We say that all the time when people call in and they say, well, I took this forever and I don't feel any better. A lot of the times that's kind of because we've got some stuff to fix up here, and that's okay, right? Yeah. But with these steps, with this nice action plan, hopefully we can get our nation back on track. But anyway, join us next Tuesday and Thursday. Today's Tuesday, so join us Thursday.
Yep.
11 a.m. We'll have another topic. I was actually thinking about doing a fun one, Bob. I don't know what you think about this. Talking about social, right? Well, Cinco de Mayo is coming up. And just like Easter, we kind of did like what's behind Easter. I don't really know a whole bunch about Cinco de Mayo, obviously the May 5th, but maybe I'll do a little history on that. We'll talk about how to be safe and celebrate your heritage Cinco de Mayo style.
All right.
Let's
do it.
All right, you guys. Well, listen, it was great talking to you. We'll see you next time on Live Forever Young Live. Bye.